This is one of the most important summits we've ever held. And this is the longest summit we've ever held. We have the good fortune of being able to join one another, not only this week, but into next week as well. We've assembled a litany of different hearts from around the world to be able to express on not only the obstacles that our youth will be confronted with, similar to when all of us arrived, if you will, into this world, but the opportunities. How to go about it graciously. For all the youth that are with us today, we welcome you. Welcome to GatherVerse, a platform that meets at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity. With humanity-first standards of accessibility and education and equality, and community development, and safety and privacy, wellness, ethics, trust, care, compassion. We've had so many different voices that have arrived to our shores in human centricity and community to be able to explore and to help us to understand more of what it is that we've innovated with incredible technology that has landed as of late. But with these great innovations comes the necessity for mindfulness of great responsibility. I once posed a question: what happens when the technology becomes more advanced than the technologists? Years ago. And now this certainly has come to pass. Together, and only together, can we keep up with the cadence and the tempo and the accelerated passion of all those that are innovating in scientific laboratories, in their living rooms, in their offices, in their cubicles, at a hyper scale, to make sense of what it is that we've innovated and for whom we've innovated these incredible applied sciences for. We want our youth and multi-generational attendees today to know that they are not alone, that no one can do this alone, and that we've arrived in companionship and partnership humanely, hopefully with the great intent that whatever we innovate together, we do it with the express and permissive attitude of human betterment. We'd like to thank everybody that's come to join us at GatherVerse.live. Once again, it's so happy to see all of you and at our various social media streams on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and more. For those that are multi-streaming and multi-broadcasting, we welcome you. We greet you. If this is your first GatherVerse event, we welcome you. Come as you are. If you've been here before, thanks for joining again. We always appreciate your community support. We're so thankful for our partnering sponsors who've arrived with us as well. We'll hear a brief moment from them, and then we'll be heading into an incredible roundtable discussion on voices for the next generation, a testament of enduring hope. We've assembled those who do the work, who've been in the trenches, if you will, that have something to say and something to share with each of us. We welcome them. And lastly, we ask that you share this with a friend, with a neighbor, with a family member, to let somebody to understand the words that are being said today and that are being expressed, that they don't go off into the stillness of a nothingness of a night, that they deliver and they hit home, hopefully, right within our hearts and minds. With GatherVerse, we approach this humbly with a servant's heart, and we're so thankful to be able to assemble with each of you once again, and for the tenure of what is to arrive, May our gather be well.
Hi, my name is Nina Herscher, and I'm delighted to invite you to the Digital Wellness Day Summit on May 2nd, 2025. Annual Digital Wellness Day has reached over 17 million people in 64 countries to date, and last year the US Surgeon General even chimed into the conversation on Twitter. Each year, this global movement grows and grows, and we're delighted to have partnered with GatherVerse as our broadcast sponsor this year to help reach new and different people. Digital Wellness Day is about being healthy tech, not anti-tech. It's about using technology to fuel us instead of fatigue us, and make sure that we're leveraging it for its highest and most connective good. This summit will feature a panel on workplace wellness, on youth mental health, and on AI and productivity as it relates to digital flourishing. We really hope that you can tune in and join us or post on Digital Wellness Day about what tech-life balance means to you. You can register for the summit at digitalwellnessday.com under the Participate tab. We hope to see you there.
Greetings and welcome back to everyone and to our Roundtable panelists. Roundtable, we greet you and we welcome you for this important and very important first Roundtable for GatherVerse Youth Summit 2025. We ask that you would mute your mics as we briefly go round robin to be able to introduce yourselves. What I'd like for you to do is to briefly let us know, 30 seconds or less, who you are and why you've decided to be able to join us today for this incredibly important Roundtable discussion. We have much to cover, so we'll move as quickly as we possibly can. Asia, please, will you kick off?
Hi there, it's Asia Bribieska Hedin. I'm so glad to be back with you. Yes, it's spelled Asia, pronounced Asia. But I'm here because it's really important to me that we understand, young, old, any age, that we want to innovate, but without outsourcing what makes us human. And so that's kind of the conversation, go on with the innovation, but let's keep clear where we add value and how we leverage the technology we innovate.
Asia, please forgive the oversight of your name. You've been with us before, and it's just something that just wasn't remembered, but we certainly do value your presence. Thank you for joining us. Alita, please.
Good morning. I just want to say thank you to GatherVerse and all of the team for creating such an amazing worldwide global community. I think it's vitally important. I am grateful that we all get to come forth and speak our voice, especially on the matter of our youth. For me, I'm just super passionate about this topic, period, because I've dealt with a lot of young leaders who are moving into the world. I've dealt with young aerospace engineers who have encountered fear, Ivy League college grads who are encountering fear, psychologists, young psychology grads who are going into the performance side of things, medical interns. It's everywhere, right? And so all of the future leaders really need to have this ray of hope and a level of understanding that's going to take them into the future.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alita. We welcome you once again. And Diane, please. Your mic, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Diane Chabasi. I'm honored to be part of here. As a mother, a first-generation immigrant, and a founder of two mission-driven ventures, Grace May and Loving Legacy, Fin and Die Foundation. I think this topic about hope, enduring hope, is so dear to my heart because in everything I do, for me, hope is has always been an anchor, not just a feeling, but a strategy, a steady whisper that's saying, keep going, even when the path ahead feels uncertain. And I believe our young people, faced with enormous complexity these days, and also possibility, are being called not just to adapt, but to lead. So today I wanted to speak not just as a professional, but as someone who has walked through the unknown, held tight to purpose, and come out on the other side, gratefully grounded and committed to helping the next generation do the same. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, Diane. We welcome you and thank you for sharing this. Those words of expression. We're already setting it off for this roundtable. And Christy, we welcome you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, hope it's actually a leadership multiplier. Gallup data shows that people who are hopeful managers or leaders, they drive a ton better engagement, performance, and retention. It's actually a fact that hopeful leaders increase productivity by as much as 14%. And so I'm here to talk about that a little bit today. I'm Christy Straw. I'm an executive visibility strategist and leadership expert. The founder of Lighthouse Leadership Consultants, and I've spent over 20 years inside of the corporate machine, I call it, plenty of corporate conditioning. And so I help leaders navigate the transformation of what's taking place in the world today, because we are, in the middle of our biggest shift yet. While AI is scaling super fast, so is disconnection. And so I'm here because I believe that the next generation does need technical fluency, of course, but more than that, we all need a greater degree of emotional fluency. So they need leaders who know how to stay human in a system that is literally trying to automate everything. And I'm really excited to talk about it today.
We're happy to lean in and talk about it more with you, Christy. Thank you so much. And Michael, we greet you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm Michael Allison, founder and CEO of the Diversity Academy. And one of the biggest reasons why I'm here in regards to speaking to the youth, it means so much to me being an immigrant from Jamaica and someone actually growing up in Miami and seeing what it's like to see what it's for youth to grow up in some poverty situations and circumstances. And for me to be one of those youth to get out of that. And now I'm speaking and doing leadership training and seeing the impact that it has, knowing the impact we have where we could deliver hope and share that to the youth nowadays is such an important responsibility and an accountability piece for us.
Okay, hope we'll get Michael right back with Wi-Fi considerations. And Ellen.
Hi, my name is Ellen, and I am a generational translator. So what do I mean by that? I work with early career professionals and explain to them the thoughts and expectations of leadership inside of companies and how companies really work, sort of the unwritten rules. And then I work with companies and their leadership to try to translate for them what the expectations and skills and thoughts and values are of the newest generation entering the workplace. And just to give you an idea why we need a generational translator, I would ask you all to think right now about a song where the word little is in the title. And I bet you with that same prompt, the mental playlist that all of us have is going to be very different generation by generation. And so same ideas, but very different expectations, very different ways of approaching something, very different thoughts. And so the reason I'm very excited about being here today is because I truly believe that the generation that's coming up right now, that's soon going to be 30 to 35% of the workforce, can change the world, but not if we can't all speak to each other and communicate well. So I'm very hopeful about today's GatherVerse and excited to be here.
Thank you, Ellen. We're looking forward to exploring more of the sentiments that you just graciously expressed. Michael, did you want to finish?
No, go ahead. I just was able to share a little bit about my upbringing, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be here, speak with you guys, speak more about hope and how me as a leader and being in the space that I am and seeing what it's like to have an impact on kids nowadays is truly tremendous. So just looking forward to the opportunity to speak to you guys about that.
And we're looking forward to speaking with you. And as a side note, as a decorated soldier, we just want to say thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Trina, please, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again, Christopher, for creating this wonderful space. I'm Trina L. Hill, and I am the CEO and founder of TLH Consulting. I am passionate about this is because I once was them, right? 20, 25 years ago, a number of us were walking into the workforce and We were bright-eyed. We thought we knew everything. And we were grateful. And I know I was grateful to have people come alongside of me and walk me into adulthood, right? Walk me into leadership, walk me into even my faith walk, right? Helping me through that. And so one of the things that I think with this next generation of leaders is that we have to make sure that we're reaching back and helping them shepherd. They run fast, but we're the ones with the wisdom. They can run fast, but we need to tell them where to go or how to go where they're going so that they don't hurt themselves in pursuit of what they perceive to be success.
Thank you so much, Trina. We certainly do welcome you once again here at GatherVerse for this 31st Summit audience titled the GatherVerse Youth Summit with a distinct focus. It's just so interesting when Trina made mention of our days of old, if you will. We all had our time in our youth. I suspect that there will be quite a bit of reminiscing this week and next on the lessons that we were afforded when we were younger. And somebody, audience, at some point gave us the opportunity to be able to guide us. And we were afforded just for someone to help point us in the right direction. We have a lot of questions to uncover and unpack here with a little bit of time that we have roundtable. And so we will be going question for question, and we will be going off script as I will now. And I'll begin with you, Asia. We hear this word leadership, and oftentimes it's used in the throes of business. And I'd like to think that I really understand what leadership means, but will you help me to understand from your lens perspective that you would share with all of the global GatherVerse community, when we talk about leadership for today's and next generations to come for our youth, what does that look like? And what is needed? What is the ingredients of leadership today in 2025?
Absolutely. So leadership, I have a very specific way about talking about leadership because it involves everybody and not just the people who have a team or direct reports or decision authority, right? Leadership is your ability to elicit the best from yourself and others toward a common goal, right? Whatever that goal or outcome is. But I think what makes that way of thinking about it important is that it always starts with you. You elicit the best from yourself first, and then from there, in other words, you're not walking in already, let's say, flustered, with an attitude, angry, trying to prove something. Rather, you show up and start out already in a space connected to what's most important here now. And now from there, how do I, align everybody and get us all moving in the same direction and getting folks wanting to show up at that next level? And I think what's important and necessary about that for today is that I love AI. So for one, let me start by saying that I've leveraged it, from day one. I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic as a thought, consciousness, and brilliance enhancer, not replacer. And what we need to do today, and hopefully always, is remember that, what makes us human, that's what we want to pull into how we show up as leaders, what we expect from others, and actually invite them to be human in the workplace, which is something that I still think is lacking and limited. And we know people are suffering, but we want them to leave their suffering at the door, as opposed to even just taking a moment to acknowledge, hey, things are rough. How can we support? And same for our kids.
Asia, thank you for sharing that. And Christy, I'm going to leap over to you, Alita, and then Michael, then so forth and so on. We have a lot to cover. We will be jumping around, but I really appreciated what Asia just talked about, with leadership starting from within first to be able to draw out internally what we have, as opposed to some book that I read on the shelf at Barnes and Noble. I think that makes a daylight difference. Christy, what do you think about that? Your mic, please.
I completely agree with you. So much of leadership today, unfortunately, is rooted in theory, right? Theory is great, but as the next generation has shown us with their feet of literally walking out the door from what I call shamagers, which are managers who lead via shame or who are just a sham of a leader and shouldn't be in that role. Unfortunately, that next generation, well, fortunately, that next generation is showing us with their feet that they absolutely aren't going to tolerate a culture that is riddled with stigma, a culture that isn't about growth and development. And then when you actually think about what the next generation wants in a modern leader versus what most people operate from, which is a command and control model, we really struggle with instilling hope in the next generation. And so that's my biggest fear, right? People are telling us every single day that data doesn't lie. Listen, I'll go drive an Uber, be damned what my daddy says about it, before, right? Everybody's laughing. Before I'm going to go work with a leader who is not a leader, who is a shamager, who doesn't understand the importance of creating a psychologically safe environment. That's where innovation is going to thrive. That's where people bring their whole selves to work. And everybody wants to talk about belonging, but we do not currently have leaders in place who, one, understand what actual belonging is, and two, are ready to put their money literally where their mouth is. We don't have a congruence of actions and words in a lot of executive spaces. And me having come from one that was very similar to that, it's the whole entire reason that I started the business. It's concerning, and leadership theory isn't what we need as much as leaders who are willing to get in the trenches, roll their sleeves up, mentor the youngsters, and also more than mentor them, sponsor them, highlight them, give them opportunities, and bring them along and provide access that our privilege allows us in some cases to others.
Sure, I find that rather fascinating, Christy and Lita. Maybe you can help me to understand some things that Christy just unpacked when it comes to rolling up the sleeves, if you will, getting into the trenches and to be able to support our youth and to sponsor them. But my question will, I think, will help be in complement. How do I actually access the youth of today's world when I can remember in the days of our youth, and perhaps I'm alone, a siloed individual in this, but there was such a disconnect with the older generation when I was younger. How do we bridge that gap so that we can even support our youth to be able to help sponsor them? Alita?
Yeah, thank you. So I would say, we have a habit of speaking to our youth, right? Of talking to our youth versus asking our youth their opinions. If we want to assemble and create thought leaders and thinkers, then we need to value and appreciate their opinion. We need to allow their voice to be heard. We need to speak to them as if they are decision makers over their own lives, because they are, right? As well as anything else that they might lead moving forward into the future. And for me, leadership is really like, let's boil it down and keep it super simple, right? I always say we need to lead with compassion. Everybody says empathy. I say not empathy. Empathy requires being able to feel what another person can feel. Not everybody has shared experiences. Compassion, however, does allow us, right, the capacity to be able to understand another person's experience. And that's really what opens the door for open communication and better understanding everywhere. The key to this is really teaching our youth about integrity, right? And we teach our youth about integrity by being integritous, meaning our actions should match our words, right? Our actions should match our words.
Indeed. Michael, in the work of our actions matching our words, where do we go? How do we come down to the level of our youth to demonstrate to them that our actions do match our words, to communicate with them how important it is that they have a good grip on the understanding of the world that they're heading into? Because from their eyes, they don't necessarily see what's on the other side of the mountain, but their world is so huge of what it is that they see, but there's so much more yet to come. How do we arrive to where they're at, Michael?
Yeah, I love that question. Being someone that served in the military, you kind of taught a certain type of way of being a leader. And when it comes to applying some of those things, it does not apply when it comes to meeting the youth. And for me, to answer your questions directly, is you got to meet them where they are. meet them where they're at. You got to get to their level. Leadership is more than just some of those things that you've learned in the past traditionally, and now you have to meet them where they are. So you got to do that effectively to reach them, to inspire them outside of some of the traditional models. And then when I say that, you got to think about it from a standpoint of like, we got to be relatable, not just respected, but relatable to them, understand them, share some of our stories, be open to their thoughts, be open to their language, to their opinion, where they're from, accepting some of the things that they're going to bring to the table too as well. And then for me, when I work with youth as well too, is as a leader, you got to be able to guide them without just dictating, right? So be able to just ask some questions and probing, help them discover things and find out different things and providing different principles, not just rules. Those are some of the things that I would say. And then thirdly, I would also add this to as well, is like listening to build trust. It's so hard nowadays for kids to start building trust with people they are willing to be vulnerable and transparent with. I could think about that for myself with some of the things that I've been through as a kid. And I was always searching and seeking someone that I could actually build trust with. And in positions that we are as leaders, to be mentors, to be coaches, if we could build that relationship to build trust, I think that is significantly going to be important too as well. And then for us as leaders too, we have to model what we're preaching. So if we're going to ask these kids to listen to us, to follow us, then we have to model that and embody that. And even at the point of, even if we make mistakes, admit that we make mistakes and just demonstrate some of those things consistently as well too. We cannot preach it and then not live it too as well. And I think those are some of the most key important parts when it comes to like discovering that identity for them to actually find and seek their purpose too as well.
That's rather powerful, Michael, and thank you for sharing that. And Diane, some of the sentiments that I gauge from what Michael expresses, admittance and hope and a promise. But Diane, you talk about hope as a strategy. I find that rather fascinating. And looking at that, we're coming down to the trenches of where the youth are, or wherever they abide within the forest or in the meadow, and arriving to them. But it seems that we're arriving with the deal that's to be made, to be understood, and having this relationship on how we intentionally have regard to them and how they will have regard to us. But we talk about hope as a strategy, Diane, and the vestiges of leadership. Could you share more about that with us, please, in your mic?
Of course. Yeah. So hope is really a strategy. And we inspire hope when we stop trying to protect young people from hardship and instead equip them to meet it with agency, community, and perspective. Hope is born from being seen, supported, and trusted to contribute. So when you're thinking about the education that our youth is accessing to, the modeling that we have the responsibility to perform, whether it's mentoring a young founder or facilitating a dialogue circle, we've seen firsthand that when young people are invited to create, not just to consume or comply, hope becomes tangible. So I think we need to create that container to let them build, let them lead, and let them know that their voice shapes more than just the future, it shapes the now. So that's what I consider hope is really the strategy, and it's rooted in the right mindset that we are helping our youth to build.
And when we talk about hope, Trina, and we talk about the need for hope and to instill within our youth that their aspirations can be fulfilled, and that it could be more than just a hope, but it could be actual, something actual that can be. It kind of segues with when I think about what Michael talks about with actionable intent. And Alita says, demonstrating that which what you believe in that you would say unto them and communicating unto them, which is just so important, because it seems to me that our youth are more observant in this world than they ever have been before any other generation that's walked the face of this earth. Let's look at it, audience. If you look at all the devices and the applications of transparency that our generation have innovated and that we deployed into the world, for those such as myself in the 80s and the 90s, I'm dating myself, so I get it. But for those that have grew up, that were raised in these times, Trina, we didn't enjoy such devices as TikTok and Instagram and the LinkedIns of the world and social media for that. We had sticks and stones and tree branches to be able to work with our next door neighbors, didn't we? and that was and then whatever the evening news, and we all saw the same evening news on a localized level. But in this world, our youth are seeing more than they ever have before, and there's a certain residual sentiment that's engaged within them, depending on the content that they've subjected themselves to and that they enjoy for transparency. Trina, help us to make sense of this hope for a better future when so much of what they see is a future that does not seem hopeful.
Yeah, so I still think it goes back to, I believe in relationships. So to me, I'll say two things. So number one, relationships matter, right? I know for me, I wanted to be seen, heard, and valued as a teenager. I still want those same things as an adult. We all want that, right? We want to know that we're seen, we're heard, and we're valued. And so when I think about the technology and the explosion of the technology, our youth is screaming to be seen, heard, and valued. Value means likes. Value means followers to them. I think what we have to do as leaders in different spaces, because we're leading in different spaces, right? As parents, as aunts and uncles, and also professionals in the workplace, is we have to help them understand that your value is greater than the technology that you use, and that your impact is greater. And success is not defined by followers. We grew up during a time where being a follower was a bad word. At least I was. My mother was like, I don't want you to be a follower, be a leader, be a leader, be a leader. This technology explosion has taught our children, our young adults, to be followers instead of for them to spend time with themselves and understand who they are and understand the leaders that they really need to be. And you learn that through trial and error. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do dumb stuff. That's what you do. That's a part of the evolution of a leader, a good leader, I would say. It's understanding when you made those mistakes, understanding when you need to pivot, and also giving yourself forgiveness in the process and having time to reflect on what did I learn and what do I need to do better. And so as I think about this next generation, I have a 20-year-old. So I am a very smart person to everybody except for him. He is my Gen Z mentor. But the one thing that I try to impress upon him, as well as other young adults that I'm around, is relationships and people matter. Get off your phone, put it down, have conversations that are not transactional, and spend time getting to know people. And also being respectful, because the other part of this, right, is that we're going to try to create, our goal is to create this safe space, but that safe space must be reciprocal. So as we try to pour into them, they have to make sure that their cup is empty enough and that they're willing to allow us to pour into the cup, because it won't make sense if we're spending time to listen, as Michael talked about, right, and to show them what leadership is if they're not willing to receive what we're trying to give them. It has to be a mutual exchange.
Got it. Thank you, Trina. And I'm going to touch back more on that in a second. There's a lot that you just unpacked there. But Ellen, I want to rendezvous over to you. You seem to have a sufficient amount of optimism in the belief that our youth, perhaps collectively as a whole in civilization, can make lasting impact and make difference in this world and how we've gone about it. And I would think that that's the residual hope of all of us, that our youth would do better with their opportunities than what we have, candidly. But how does that happen, though, Ellen, in your mind? Because there's hope, and then it seems like there's grandeur, to be candid. Help me to come with something more strategic, as Diane would talk about. Hope. What does that look like? You know, sure, I'd like to get up and I believe our children are the future, Whitney Houston. I need that song to come alive. So, Ellen, what do you have for me?
I think that the best way to make change is from within. And so I want to just follow up a little bit on what Trina just finished saying. And something that you said earlier too, Christopher, which was, we are all human and we grew up in different generations and we want great stuff, but we have our own fears and foibles. and expectations and ideas about how to gain success. And I think that the best way for young people to thrive and to succeed, especially in the times that are happening today, is by working inside of the system to build trust. And so, we've heard a lot of people talk about what leaders have to do, but frankly, the leaders are the folks that are our age that grew up with, no bike helmets, no seat belts, no cell phones, no warning labels on anything. So we come from a very different way of thinking about things. And I think that young people have to understand that we are just human too. And the best way to move forward and to grow and to be mentored is to build trust with people who've kind of been there, done that. So when I was thinking about what to talk about today, I looked for people who might have expressed this better than I can. And Warren Buffett just talked to some university, and he was giving advice to the folks that were graduating. And he said, the foundation of anyone's fortune, whether that be financial success or just personal success, isn't just effort. It's figuring out your strengths and then picking the right people to work with, making them trust you, and then being willing to work at something even if you make mistakes along the way. So being resilient. So I think as Trina said, this is a two-way street. And so helping young people understand that they can make a difference too by building trust and making leadership think, I trust you, I understand you, you've got my back, we'll work on this together. Then people want to help you. And then it's just about going for it and trying and believing you can.
Thank you, Ellen. That's very fascinating. And Alita, I need your help for something. Will you walk with us for a moment, please? Because as I listen under the sound of Ellen and Asia in particular, and we'll rendezvous with you, Asia, in just a moment, and Michael as well, and Christy, and so forth. I want to stay in linear progression, if you will, on this thematic of finding it within, if you will. The leader. We talk about leadership, and as I hear Ellen talking about to have trust in one another, but how can I trust one another if I don't have that, or I can't discover that trust within? So my question is, when I am looking within, searching for that leadership, when I do want to commit to trust externally, what am I looking for when I look within, and how do I find that strength that Ellen has talked about?
Yeah, that's kind of a complex one, but I would say that I would start with a bit of two things, right? One is understanding our own physical operating system and how we're designed to function. And so really understanding that it's more so than mindset, it's more understanding that we have the ability to tell our brain what to do, and it does it. That speaks to our ability to be able to remain calm and resilient in most situations. And so I like that, understanding that about how we're physically designed. You can tell your brain what to do and it does it. That is really paramount, right? Because we're caught in a systematic thought process where, and also the social media that Trina spoke to and all of the media sources, right? We need to pull ourselves out of that and understand that we have our own internal mechanism of right and wrong, right? And we can get really grounded in that. And the biggest thing that I really want to bring to the forefront is teaching people and our youth in particular how to trust their own intuition. We all have an internal guidance system. We can feel when something is right and when it's not right, right? Many people reference it as gut instinct, right? So the more that they practice learning how that functions, right? Like, oh, I'm walking down the road. Oh, gee, should I turn down that road? I don't know. My gut says no, right? Okay, then keep walking. It's that navigation system, our own internal navigation system. And the more they practice using that, the more they're educated about that, the better they're going to navigate everything it is that they have to navigate in today's world.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll follow up on the heels of that, Asia. when we started with what you progenerated, if you will, talking about the leadership within, without me having to pick up a novel and a book to be able to tap in to better understand that. Because it seems to me that there are unique cultural contributions to this world, that everyone has that IP, but the really, I just really appreciate that with what Alita just said, is it's not having to take the conventions of your leadership from social media for social media to be able to tell you how to operate in this world, but that own agency that you have within to tap into that. It seems to me that there's so much more interesting within than without when it comes to a TikTok scroll. But Asia, help us to understand, why did you say that leadership has to begin here? And when we do find that, how do we demonstrate that to reach to Ellen's aspirations of having our youth empowered or imbued with the residual hope to bring a betterment to this world and for their generations to come? I have to say this too before this is extremely important, as we kicked off in saying that if we do not show our youth how to go about this, then artificial intelligence is available. And I would submit to you that these models in this world are becoming more capable than ever before. They have the power of speech. They have computer vision. They can see. They can go conversational AI and have dialogues at length with you now with great memory capacity and larger context windows. I want to better understand, how do we convey this with the hope of mentorship and guidance, Asia?
Yeah, I love this question and this side of the conversation, because I do believe it goes back to the modeling. And I know that, Michael, you had started talking about that. And in particular, there's something you'd said earlier about when you don't know, or when you fumble, and being able to own that. And I think, especially the TikToks and the, and Facebook and every stream, it's intended to communicate our successes, or even if it's intended to communicate lessons learned, it's framed in such an inauthentic way that you never actually had to say you were wrong. I don't know if that makes sense. But I think the opportunity for us and to help our youth is to model what failure, setbacks, recovery, rethinking, and reconsideration look like. All of those things, so that when we have conversations with them, we're not just giving them an answer. We're asking them what they think, right? Because I think, Trina, you were saying this earlier. You wanted to be asked what you thought and know that it mattered and that it counted, and that continues to matter. But asking what they think, not just what they think, but why. Asking them to consider, what would somebody who disagrees with you say about this? What might they say, and why? And how could both of these things be a little true? Because I think it's that nuance that we used to define intelligence, on some level, as the ability to see two conflicting or confounding things as potentially true. And now we've gotten to a place where we've removed all of the important variables and just try to reduce an entire complex perspective to a soundbite. And then we have our kids repeating those sound bites. They don't even know why. They'll hear a term thrown out like, so-and-so is fake news. And so they'll start to say, so-and-so is fake news. Oh, okay, why? But they can't actually discern or understand the question why. And again, it's okay if that's what they believe or don't believe, but we want them to understand the power of their own discernment. We want to make our thinking and our recovery and our ability to misstep and think through, oh, shoot, that did not work at all the way I hoped. Okay, here's what worked. Here's what totally didn't work. What's one thing I can do differently next time? So that they're not as tied up as, I think, even me, I'm a Gen Xer, as we are in trying to look like we have it figured out. And like I said, even when we make mistakes, framing it in such a way that, and look how awesome I am to now be sharing this wisdom with you. When the reality is, my real fumbles, my big fumbles, I'm keeping back here. I'm hiding them away from everyone.
I'd like to step in. I don't agree. I don't agree at all, actually. I think that authentic authority is what we're encouraging in youth. And unfortunately, I call them shamagers or dinosaurs, like I said, that we have in executive leadership. They don't like that. They don't want people to have employee generated content in a lot of systems, and they'll talk to you about that. They don't want you to talk about your mistakes. I do not agree, because I too am a Gen Xer, that we buff up whatever we do and we can't call it a mistake. I truly don't think there's a lot of mistakes in life. I think that the way to move forward is we win or we learn. And I think that that is the power of helping youth understand that you can innovate, you can ask questions. We've got to ask better questions. I totally agree about critical thinking, but I think the problem lies with executive leadership in a lot of situations. Having come from the C-suite, I see a lot of head shaking, consulting with them. They struggle with the mentality that you can try and you can try again. And I've quit a lot of things in my life, and I'm quite a winner. And so I do a lot of talking about that to my 3 children and when I'm on a stage, because it's that antiquated mentality that has kept youth small, and they don't want to play the game and they don't want to show up in the world that way. And we need leaders who don't normalize failure or you can't quit, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is a massive key to building and generating hopefulness in this next
This is my concern, though, that we're assuming that failure is a bad word, and this is where we went wrong. This is where we went wrong, because we can't get to whatever it is that beautiful, shiny other side is without the multiple stumbles along the way. So let's talk about the frickin' stumbles. We're all having them, right? All the time, everywhere. So we need to model having those conversations. So we screwed up publicly. And now how are we recovering from this? It's awful. We got egg in our face. And yet we're still here to talk about it another day. Right. So, yeah, I think we have made mistakes a bad word. We've made failure a bad word. We've made even owning them bad, to the point that we're trying to redirect what was clearly potentially our responsibility on someone else. Right. So you have those, and I love that term shamager, by the way, but you have those shamagers that are then, I don't know if you've heard of the term failing up. But they fail, and instead of owning the failure and helping the team recover from the failure, they blame it on the team or someone else and keep on moving up because they're untouched. And that is not the way. We want people to know you're supposed to be touched. You're supposed to get through this with bumps and bruises and know nothing has gone wrong. Anyway, I will stop.
I want to surf on that for a second. Because that does speak squarely to the question that we have on deck right now of the mindset, preparing the youth for a future we can't predict. Michael is someone that is not a stranger to entering into and well trained for hostile environments and entering into it. It seems to me that the world of innovation has made the situation quite volatile when our youth are heading into, again, they're not heading into Nintendo and Sega Genesis and Barbie. They're heading into something much more transparent, much more different. What is the mindset that's needed that we must convey to our youth based on the mistakes and the errors that we have innovated and the brilliant technology that we have innovated? It's almost like the scientist that stands by and says, my goodness, what have I done? What have I made? And we're saying, here, this is your responsibility now. What mindset do we send our youth in, according to what Christy and Asia are looking at? Sir. Your mic, sir.
Yeah, I'm here listening, and I just think it's interesting based off where we're at now with our youth. And I think for myself, the first time technology, a cell phone, actually touched my hand was at 22 years old. Now, my son is waking up on his cell phone, and my son is 17 years old, but he had a cell phone in his hand at about 4 or 5 years old. So it's been in his hand in regards to technology, the evolution of TikTok, the Instagrams, the YouTubes, all of these different things are now fighting for his attention. These highlight reels are catching his attention, and he's being so distracted by so many other things that's changing his mindset and his thinking and processing and all of these different things. We could even like chalk it up to some of the things we talk about with the things, they wanted things in a microwave, from a microwave standpoint. And when it comes to mindset, you know, I've always looked at what the military has always taught me, and is proper planning prevents poor performance. And when we think about being resilient, being adaptable, and having those types of mindset nowadays, we have to start embracing some of those things, because that's leading to the curiosities, leading to some of the uncertainties, leading to some of the things that tied to the growth. And these kids now are on the verge of like perfection, right? So when we look at what we're talking about, you can't say I messed up, or I can't say I had mistakes, because all we're seeing is the highlight reels. All we're seeing is all of the things that we're doing so well. So if I mess up, if I screw up, oh, it's a bad thing. Oh, I'm depressed. Oh, I might have anxiety. Or I want to commit suicide. All of these different things are tied to these things that are impacting their minds, impacting their thought process, and how they're going through things. So it's important for us as leaders, it's important for us now in regards to like teaching and conveying, to be much more resilient in facing some of these things and addressing some of these things head on, opposed to running away from it, because this is what is leading to, and we can see some of these things spilling out into our faces now. As soon as something bad happens, you see it on the news, they're shooting up schools, they're doing all of these different things, because instantly they're thinking, this is the result of this. This is what I need to do, because they have not been taught, they have not been trained, they have not prepared, they have not been planned. No one is coaching them, no one is mentoring them to deal with tough times, tough situations, and tough circumstances. So it's important for us to bring some of those back in and start planning and start preparing, and just putting some of these infrastructure back into place as leaders to help them prepare to deal with adversity, to deal with challenges, to learn how to pivot, to learn how to be adjustable, learn how to be adaptable, to learn how to deal with complex situations, to learn how to rebuild, how to reprocess things inside of our mind. And some of those things where we could start putting back into the schools, putting back into parenting, putting back into programs, putting back into is all of these different things I think is key and important at this particular time.
Thank you so much, Michael. Trina, what do our youth want from us? You know, we spend time thinking about what it is that we want to instill into them, but what do they even want from us?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to, I want to be seen, I want to be heard, I want to be valued. And that's what they want, what they say they want. But I think another thing that they want, but they don't know yet to ask for this, is tying back to what Michael said, is how do we help them be resilient? How do we help them learn to transform, right? Or the word is pivot, right? Because again, if we go back to most of us on this call, some of us on this call were latchkey kids. We didn't have parents at home. We had to come. I know I had to go home. I had to get dinner on. And whether that was right or wrong, we were just very self-sufficient. If I messed up a meal, my mother got on to me. She showed me how to fix it. And then I had to do it again. She didn't tell me I couldn't do it again, right? In corporate America, the leaders that helped me allowed me to fail. And something else that and we've touched on this, they wanted me to see them as people, not positions. And even as an executive prior to me working for myself, that was something that I was key on. They want to know that we're people. We're not a position. We're going to make mistakes. And our desire is to communicate to let them know you're going to be okay. If you make a mistake, it'll be fine. We'll fix it. You'll learn from it. You'll move on. But they need to know we got their backs. I don't think they always feel like somebody's going to have their back. We're so busy telling them how to I think it was Diane mentioned, to keep them from making the mistakes versus saying, I already know you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to cover you. I'm going to cover you now. I'm going to teach you ahead of time. So some of these things I'm going to teach you so that you don't make a dumb mistake. Because to me, I don't believe in paying for a lesson that's already been paid for. Why pay for a lesson I've already bought? Don't do that. That doesn't make sense. But if you make the mistake, I'm going to cover you. But again, Christopher, I still think it goes back to relationships and communication and trust. Because I won't cover you if I don't know you, if I don't trust you, right? You won't let me cover you if you don't know me, if you don't trust me. And so in this digital age with young adults definitely going back into the workplace, into the office, I think we've got to go to lunch. I think we got to sit around and have some meals. From a virtual perspective, I think leaders as well as the youth We have to reach out to one another and have people conversation and not position conversations.
You know, I find that
Conversations with your leaders shouldn't just always be about work. It should be about them as a person.
and that I'm a person and not a responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense, Trina?
Yep.
I think about that and I hear it, and it's just so personable when you start thinking about the disposition and the positioning that our youth find themselves in, Diane, in this world where we're wanting them to hope, you know, for the best, and despite the incredible challenges. And I must admit, I can't imagine what it is from the eyes and the lens of a 15-year-old. I can't even empathize anymore. And I think that may be part of the problem, is that I want them to understand a thing that I'm attempting to convey to them, Diane, based on my experience at 15. But my 15-year-old experience is not their 15-year-old experience. They see more. You know, there's a time where our parents want to tell us things with good reason, or so-called good reason, to be able to keep us from knowing that, and we'll find out when we're older. But as Michael just expressed, that his son wakes up with a phone in his hand, and on that device, and on this phone, there are more things to see in this world than ever before. And it's rather transparent. And so we're asking them to hope. So when you talk about hope comes with strategy, what reason do they have to even come to the table in the first place to sit and to be able to, in this new deal, to make a strategy of hope, Diane?
Yeah, so I think hope will emerge or endures when it's practiced, not just preached. So, and this should be a collective effort. You know, it needs to be built into our institutions, into our curriculums, our creative practices, and in our relationships. So how can we embed hope into how we lead, how we live our own lives and structure our organizations, or even pass down on our legacies? It becomes more than a feeling. It has to become a culture in order for them to create an environment for them to actually practice this hope, this strategy of hope. So I think this is a big mission. It's a mission for all of us. It's not an overnight effort. It's not a one-person effort either. You know, I think by having this summit is a testament to that effort. The more we talk about it, the more that we make it normalized. That's how our youth will come to the table, will feel it's, you know, it's being practiced every day around them and include them. So I'm hoping that we will be that force to build an aligned, resilient foundation for them.
Thank you, Diane. But Alita, I want you to segue into this because I know you have something to express on the heels of what was just expressed.
Yeah, I do. So when it comes to hope, and just in general, I want everybody to understand programming is very real, right? So as a society and globally, on an overall whole, we are programmed to primarily think negatively versus positively. We are programmed to focus on all the dump, basically all the trash, all the negative things that are happening in the world versus the really awesome things that are happening in the world. So Trina, to your point of put this down, right? There's a couple things I will say to this. This is programming. I would tell and encourage all of the kids, pay attention to your algorithms because they are a reflection of your thought patterns and they are literally regurgitating back to you what you're focused on a regular basis. So pay attention to that and use it as a tool, not just young leaders, but adults also, right? Pay attention to what's primarily popping up for you because it's an algorithm of your focus and your attention. So that programming, we are programmed and it's a pattern. That programming, right, is a bunch of bullshit, quite frankly. And I will say that out loud because when you step out into the world, right, I have people say this to me all the time, Alita, yeah, but I'm a realist, right? And I will say, if you're a realist, my friend, then understand this. When you put down all of the programming and you step out into the world, there's as many superheroes across the world globally saving lives daily, right? There's miracles that are happening left and right all the time, but we're not broadcasting it. We're not programming it. So I will say to the youth, stay curious and stay open-minded versus assumptive. Do not assume the worst. Instead, stay curious. How many times have I wanted to finish a person's sentence because I'm assuming that I think I already know what they're saying, only to find out that that wasn't what they were going to say at all.
Sure.
Right?
Thank you, Alita. Much appreciated. Christy, and then Ellen will route over to you. Christy, I want you to route in to talk about hope. I want to leave this conversation with residual optimism, and then I have a brief 10-second for each of you to be able to rehearse, and then we'll conclude. But Christy, let's segue into hope.
Yeah, so much of hope is really well stated, Alita. A lot of people don't actually have, and they don't grow and work on that muscle of a solution-focused mindset or a mindset of abundance. Now, I first like to caution that there are people who don't grow up in a world where there is a mindset of abundance. It would be really unwise of me to stand here and say that everybody's trained in that way, everybody had that experience growing up, but leadership should, at the very least, be growth-minded and operate from a mindset of abundance and also positive intent. Right? So much of leadership needs to be anchored in positive intent in order to continue to grow hope and to show hope as a strategic opportunity moving forward for the youth. I would definitely.
Christy, let me ask you quick. How are we quantifying abundance?
Yeah, that's going to be up to each individual, but much to what Alita was saying, there is an abundance mindset and there's a scarcity mindset that we've all heard of, right? It's really, what lens do you typically operate from? How do you retrain your neural pathways? I do it all the time. If I walk by someone and I'm like, oh, wow, that was quite an outfit, I say, first of all, that was judgmental and you don't like being judgmental, so stop your internal narrative. And secondly, what can you say that's positive? I started doing this 5 or 6 years ago and everything exploded and changed in such beautiful ways in my life and for the people that I was leading. And we would talk about it. It doesn't mean we're all saintly. It doesn't mean we don't have the negative thoughts. It doesn't mean we don't think the judgmental things. The difference is we're not reactive, we're reflective, and we reframe into a hopeful, abundant thought pattern.
I really appreciate you defining abundance, because abundance nowadays is translating into $1 billion or multi-billion-dollar unicorn platform, and wealth does not buy health. So thank you for quantifying that. Ellen, let's segue over to you. I know that you have something that you really want to say in regards to this, with the hope that you've delivered so far when it comes to how we would like to see the youth operate in the future. Your mic as well.
Thanks for reminding me I was on mute. Yeah, I think that the message, to close, to convey, is that it's really, really important for young people to remember that success is not linear and success is not immediate. And one of the most important things that you can embrace today is adaptability and the ability to change with the circumstances. So there are many, many examples of young people who have overcome and still kept moving forward. Think about Simone Biles. Like, she walked out of the Olympics, however many years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, because she said she was just, her mind wasn't on it and she didn't want to hurt herself. And she's come back and she is still an incredibly respected athlete. And she's a young person who knew that success isn't a one-time thing. It's not linear and it's not immediate. There's another example here in the United States. There was a school shooting in Florida in 2020, I believe. And rather than just cowering and never wanting to go back to school, there were a group of young people who started an organization against gun violence. And one of the young men, whose name is, I believe it's Maxwell Frost, went on and he ran for Congress in Florida. And he is the youngest congressperson in the United States now, based on just believing I can take one step in front of another step. I don't have to do it all at once. And I can sort of refocus and move to the left, move to the right if I need to keep going.
Sure.
And the best way to do that is to build trusted relationships with people that can help you, because when you build trusted relationships, people, they know you and they want to help you.
That's very powerful. It seems to me there has to be a disposition of vulnerability to open ourselves to build trusted relationships with people that want to help you, because people could be so resilient to help. I know I'm guilty of this as well, if I had to be completely transparent. But what a lesson to end this off with. But I will ask this one word from each of our roundtable. This is a time capsule for tomorrow. If you could give one word, just one singular word, to be able to enter into this time capsule that we have together, what word would that be regarding hope, if you will? Just one singular word for the youth 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years from now that they would see. Asia, we'll begin with you, please, briefly. Your mic, please.
Okay. Together.
Powerful. Alita.
Miracles.
Incredible. Diane.
Strategy.
Business-minded. Christy.
Open-minded.
Well met. Ellen.
Agency.
How appropriate. Michael.
Vision.
Or forward thinking. Trina.
Love.
Thank you, Roundtable. This has been a powerful discussion. I'll reserve my remarks for later on that. I think yours was quite sufficient. Audience, please take time to follow and to support our Roundtables panelists that joined us today. This has been an incredible experience to kick off our 2025 GatherVerse Youth Summit. Our Gather was well. Thank you.